Hi, this is Mike making my video to add to my collection. Today is a 4/29/2025 and it's 5:47 p.m. So anyway, I got my teeth in now, so I figure I'd make a video. But anyway, yeah, it's about, basically the two worlds, the inside and the outside, and they become one world. The waking state and the dream state, basically. And, I pretty much came to the conclusion that they're ultimately the same world in many ways. Uh, I've done supernatural things in both worlds, and, your dreams can become your reality. There really is no distinction between the two. So yeah, anyway, your mind makes up all this world that we live in, and it makes up the subconscious world as well. It builds all the architecture, and it, more or less, has the actors and stuff like that that are generated by the mind. And likewise, the outside world is much the same way. We add to that. We create things and we add them to this world that we're in. So, with that being said, it's like there is no distinction. And, it's generated by the mind. Yeah, okay, maybe I might have my computer, or something, or a car, but the thing is, it's always there. But, the thing is my awareness of it isn't, and out of sight, out of mind. And the things literally disappear as soon as you ignore them. And, I've seen spirits materialize. A girl, she had clothes on, and she even had a device with her, night vision goggles. But she had a conversation with me, and she was very beautiful. But then, as I noticed, as I got kind of tired and stuff like that, she just kind of faded away into the background. So, I'm thinking to myself, maybe she just was part of my imagination, but, she became real. And spirits can become physical like the flesh. Uh, I've seen that happen. And, so really it's just your mind, it's just consciousness, I guess is the best way to say it. We have consciousness, but even a dog has consciousness. It has emotions, it can feel, it can think. Maybe it doesn't have the intellectual capacity that we do, but the dog still thinks and has emotions. Dogs dream. And, so with that being said, even some of the smallest things, have consciousness. I mean, even a worm feels pain, you know. So, with that being said, a little bird or whatever, those things think. Um, so that God even feeds the birds or whatever, but, when they say God, they're talking about YHVH, and they're talking about, uh, maybe the mind of the bird helps the bird lure things into it. There's things too, animals possess abilities that we don't have sometimes. I've seen animals cross water, walk on water and stuff, and they're not as intelligent as us, but they're still capable of doing it. And I've seen them run through gates and stuff that were closed, and they could pass through it. So anyway, it's just consciousness. That's really what it is. Consciousness resides within me, and we're all active players in the game. So it's almost like if you have a multiplayer game that's played online, and we're all playing the same game, and somebody else might be playing from their vantage point. They're the center of the attention, but maybe from my vantage point, I'm the subjective, they're the objective, but it's quite the opposite with them, with me. and we're all playing this game, and we're connected. And it's like we have entanglement and stuff like that. So entanglement pretty much shows that things are connected to us, and we're all basically one mind. And that's what Jesus meant. He said, when you do it to the least of thee, you've done it to me. Meaning that we're all connected, and when he has compassion for everything, you hurt somebody that's small or whatever, he feels the pain. And maybe you know that's to say that we're all connected. So, and then he says, you fornicate with somebody on the inside of your mind, you're doing it in your heart. There's no difference between that and doing it in real life. So really there is no difference. It's just consciousness. And even like the world was void and without form, and then God said, let there be light. Light being light itself, but then let's say light being intelligence, consciousness. And that consciousness, out of that consciousness, became divided, broke into many pieces, that light did. As meaning all the personalities that people have and all the different people. And all those fragments, make up the whole. And, more or less, it's like, the infinite intelligence of the universe is bestowed upon us. We're the embodiment of God, or the universe rather. And when they said the word God, it used to be YHVH, and then they put the word God in there. So it's really better to say the universe being the elements. So anyway, it's like, yeah, it was fragmented, and those fragments are pieces of the whole. And God became divided, and all those pieces are, God gets to know himself through us. I guess that's probably a simple way of saying it. But I've manifested almost everything I've ever wanted, every type of person I wanted to meet, every object I wanted to have, and every experience I wanted to have, supernatural or otherwise. And of course money and stuff like that. And then I became like Adam was before the fall, and I was able to control space-time reality. I mean, time is an illusion. I've seen things stop in time. Time is actually mechanical, and then of course it and then of course space-time. I've seen things disappear and reappear. So that tells me that things don't really exist until you observe them. And then, of course, time doesn't exist until you see it. So both of those things, relativity and, of course, quantum theory. And then, the simpler ones are Newtonian's laws. But, we go through great lengths, and we send rockets to the moon and stuff like that, and Mars. It's like we don't... If scientists would actually spend more time thinking about the human mind and studying that, they'd probably be a lot better off. And we're building supercomputers and whatnot, which in many ways is interesting, but the truth be said, you can actually pull intelligence out of even a mirror and see other worlds in it. And if you study it long enough, they've had glitches, where kids were looking in the mirrors and stuff, and they move their hand one way, or they turn their head one way, but the reflection actually went the opposite way, meaning that there were two worlds. The worlds, split, and then there's parallel universes. The double slit experiment, shows that, the interference pattern, and it shows all those little dots all across the screen like a wave, meaning that those are all separate realities, all separate ways of looking at it. You get two mirrors, and face them at each other, you see all the different realities in that mirror. Meaning that there's different realities. I've seen myself, and I was actually a lot bigger, and it was a completely, I could think on my own accord even from my other self. So there's more than one of me, and I'm a lot bigger in that sense of the word than I am now. So you're a lot bigger than you think, and if everything's on the outside of you that's really reflected from the inside, the outside is a reflection of the inside. The inside becomes like the outside, so, really what it is, everything's on the inside of you. It doesn't exist outside of you. It's not separate, it's not an isolated intelligence. Once you observe it, yeah, okay, then you have an effect on it, and it actually responds back. So, anyway, there's that, and I've seen beings, a woman that was in the DVD player, and I watched the movie, and then I looked back after a while, and I noticed she was trying to break out of the screen, and she was freaking out, and it's more or less, her soul was trapped inside the DVD player, and she had the movie set and everything, and she was part of that. So that entire world existed on the inside of my DVD player. So, I think some of the most valuable possessions you could ever own would be your computer, if you had a nice computer. Because you have all these worlds inside of it, and they're trapped in there, and it's like at some point in time, if your mind is right and stuff like that to receive, basically you can, tap into that. There's all kinds of worlds, there's universes inside of a computer, and that stands to reason. That's probably what the universe is a computer. I mean, they say it's a human mind, but then again, it could be a computer. The Boltzmann brain, or a computer, a supercomputer. From a distant galaxy, maybe from a different intelligence that's a lot bigger than us. I don't know. But anyway, there's that, and then, it's like, that's really where my focus is. That's what I'm putting most of my attention into. Is trying to understand reality, and that's really what my passion is. So, what I'll say is my most valuable possession is my laptop. Despite the fact that I paid $300 for it, it's priceless. And anyway, my mind is, my inside of my mind, my brain, and my body. My mind and my body are my most sacred things I own. They're mine, but the laptop, of course. So anyway, I've seen kind of things that broadcasted on a television screen. I had all kinds of things. One time when I was a little kid, I was about 9, and I had a black and white TV, and I looked at it, and there was a girl on there, and she was probably about 10 years old, and she was naked, and she was pubescent, and I was just a kid, and I was looking at it, and I was just like, wow, But anyway, it had lines of code that were along the side of it, and there's an entire, like, scripting, when you look at a computer program and you hit list or whatever, and it would show all the lines of code, and there was millions and millions and millions of lines of code, and they actually showed a picture of her, and she was cognizant and stuff, but whatever that was, it was me, and I was actually looking at it, and those lines of code were coming from my mind, and they're Greek and everything, and this is long before they even had computers that were anywhere near capable of doing something like that. And I seen that, and I was just like, wow, I was just tripping. So anyway, and I've had heads-up displays that were showing things underneath me as I was walking around like the Terminator. So, it tells me that we're cyborgs. So anyway, that's all I got to say.